Hey everybody, hey patrons, this is your exclusive content here. This guy is Erica's brother. His name's Lane. You've been on the podcast before.
Yes.
You were once or twice, I think.
I think it was 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Can you hear our neighbors upstairs? They're really going at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think their dogs are attacking all of them.
Good.
Something like that. It certainly sounds like it.
Ollie.
Oh, dang.
Oh, no.
Fix that. Good thing this is the extra content.
Oh, and then I put in the wrong password.
Oh, no.
I'll turn that off right now. Mm-hmm.
Are you...
Did you swear?
No.
No, he didn't.
Okay.
And neither did I.
Nice moves. Ben liked it.
Cool. Alright. So... Lane, you know what we're talking about?
Nope, not at all.
Well, you guys know this is extra content, but on the actual show, we're gonna talk about steel spine or no spine, really, right? In essence.
I don't think so.
No. That's the predominant thought of my mind when
Okay.
you talk to me about the topic, but
We'll go there, I think.
yeah, but we're talking about what? How to wage war as a Christian right now? And all the many different avenues that happens in, right?
Kind of.
Wow.
Obviously, when Erica talked to me about the topic, much different things went through my mind than hers.
We just have different application.
True.
What? You guys open yours?
Which is good. Hey, hold on. Before you open it, show them what we're eating.
Oh, wow.
You guys see that? Dunkaroos.
Focus on it?
It will. I don't know. It's okay.
Oh, but we know what it is. You can see it well enough.
Open them up.
I've never had a Dunkaroo before.
Yeah.
In your whole life?
You ever had one?
No, never.
That would make
This
sense.
is another addition to this sad childhood I had.
It's true.
I want to fling these all over.
Well, don't.
Put it on
Put
the
your
table.
thumb down there. There. Very good. You guys,
They've shrunk.
hold on.
It's the size of Grant's
There
thumbnail.
we go.
And that's a confetti
And there's
icing.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Just straight up icing?
Pretty sure that's
Yeah.
all it is, by the way.
It just tastes like very cheap Duncan Hines frosting. Or
Mhm.
Betty Crocker, whatever. It's all
Well, what
the
makes
same.
it weird is it makes it better because it is cheap.
I don't know what you just said.
It just tastes right if it's cheap.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
It'll probably give you cancer.
I already got
Quickly.
it, so we're good.
Quickly, I'm sure.
As all your kids say, I already have the cancer.
Lane got a really bad sunburn. And my kids keep telling him he's going to get cancer.
Uncle Laney, you just have the cancer.
That's fine, though.
I'm trying to think of
That's good.
what
I
they
could eat
taste
that.
like with the cookie in it now.
This is very interesting content.
Super
here.
delicious
I think
treat.
it tastes good.
If you happen to come across some Dunkaroos, get yourself some.
ShopRite had them. That's where we got.
$2.49.
I don't know where other than here there is a ShopRite.
It's really hard to believe that this little container is worth $2.49.
Is it
But
really $2.50?
Or somewhere around there.
Even at ShopRite?
Maybe it was $2.19. I don't know.
But over $2?
Yes, for sure.
It's a ripoff.
100%.
just go get yourself some graham crackers and a cheap tub of frosting, and you got yourself the same snack.
Exactly.
I don't want to say graham crackers, but
Maybe not graham crackers, but like a cheap shortbread cookie
Yeah,
of some sort.
shortbread. For sure,
Is
shortbread.
that what
tastes
kind
like,
it's supposed
it
to
tastes
be?
like something Graham would make, but obviously Grandma's would be like 10 times better.
It just says vanilla cookie.
It's even Betty Crocker, babe.
Yeah.
Betty Crocker would not make this and serve it. Betty
Well,
Crocker is a classy
They
lady.
put her spoon on it.
Well, would you look
She
at
would-
that?
She would be
She should
ashamed.
sue for
When
defamation.
you look at that right there, that's Betty Crocker.
Has 190 calories.
Holy
And
moly.
those 4 little morsels.
4?
This is not a morsel. It takes like 6 of those to make a morsel.
Oh. Is that really the unit of measurement?
I don't think so. What are they called? Probably just cookie.
Yeah. Is 190 the whole thing, though?
Serving size, 1 tray with frosting.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's the whole thing.
190 calories.
I'm not gonna lie though. I feel like I look like an idiot sitting on like a park bench just sitting there eating my Dunkaroo.
You wouldn't look like a pedophile.
No, not at all.
Well, you have to. They're so dainty. It's just wrong. It's almost wrong for a man to even do this.
It's kind of true.
And a 6'5" man.
I'm done.
It was made in Minneapolis, Minnesota, you guys. You are racist just eating those.
It's even white frosting.
I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Shame, know your name.
Well.
Lane.
It's just a vibration.
Silent. It's gonna come up.
Okay.
Everyone's gonna hear it. They're gonna know how popular you are.
Oh.
How often you're
I feel
getting
like
snaps.
Our neighborhood is so loud right now, and it's never this loud except for when we want to record.
This is totally true. I'm pretty sure there's kids outside screaming, dogs upstairs attacking their
Dog fights upstairs.
owners, attacking their humans. And what else?
That's
Anyway, so we're talking about discipleship, right?
Okay, well,
You guys, this is going to be great. Great episode.
Oh my goodness. All right, we're good with bonus.
Woo! You lead us in, all right? When we get into the podcast.
Oh, are you not going to separate them?
Separate it. Yeah. No, I mean, when we get into the topic, I'm going to need you to kick it off. Because everything I've just said, you've not clicked with, so...
I'll paint you a picture.
All right, sounds good. We're ready to start?
Sure thing.
Okay. Welcome back to Awakening Reformation, where Reformation awakens now. My name is Grant, and joined with me is my beautiful wife, Ericha, the weaker vessel.
Hello, everyone.
Also joined with us is Erica's brother and my very own brother-in-law, Lane Green.
what's up?
Lane has been a guest with us before, a couple episodes.
Not to be confused with Blaine.
Right, Blaine is the Rowlett boy. You guys are very familiar with Sandra Rowlett, Scotty Rowlett, and then we had a season of Apprentice Theologians with Blaine Rowlett and our very own Lila. But this is Lane. It certainly rhymes. It's not the same person.
Right.
But anyway, if you guys want to get to know more about us, please follow Reformed Rebel Network on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and like, comment, share if you find all of this content beneficial. We greatly appreciate it. If you want to financially support us, as little as $2 a month, you can go to patreon.com/reformedrebel, and you can do so there. And that will unlock a bunch of content. We're trying to release even more content every week. Every episode we do some extra content before and after the actual episode that you're hearing right now.
Not really after. More so before.
Yeah, it depends on the episode.
Yeah.
If there's some after content, some post-show content. But we want to release that for the patrons. And so you can go sign up. $2 a month is the lowest you can do. Obviously, you can do more. And that enables us to continue to put out the content we do. And we greatly appreciate it.
There is a shortage of content at the moment
Things have been weird.
due to many factors.
I'm sure you guys are all aware. The world has not been the same since March, pretty much.
Pretty much March.
Pretty much everything was shut down, locked down, and people's lives got very different.
Yeah.
So,
Busy and slow at the same time.
Rebel Podcast has been on a hiatus because not only lockdown, but Nate has been running around doing a lot.
Because Nate's been going to war.
Yeah, that's right. He has.
Right on topic for the evening.
So true.
We can use Nate as our shining example of what to do.
Right now, or do you want to wait till we get into it a little bit?
Well, we'll let Nate make his own announcements of his own,
All right.
accomplishments. But
Well, because of that, I hope they start up soon.
Nate's been BA.
Yeah, he has. He has been rocking it.
Mm-hmm.
We need to say anything else?
What content do we have out right now? We have the Little Pilgrim's Promise.
Yes. If you go to our YouTube channel, there's a 4-part series tracing the pilgrims from England to Holland to America. and we kind of explored the theology behind why they did what they did. And it is geared towards kids, but there's a lot of historical content there that I think can benefit anyone. And it's even put in a playlist. There's 4 episodes. It's about an hour altogether. And a lot of music. The production level is a little higher on those. Music and...
As high as we get.
Yes, right. But anyway, it's good, right? I mean...
Yeah, it was cute.
I'm obviously
Helpful.
biased, but...
Right.
So...
There is a corresponding coloring sheet on our patron
page.
Okay, I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, it's still a page. You just got to pay to access everything on the page.
So if you're a patron and you want to use that content for your kids, then just know there's a corresponding coloring sheet you can print off.
There you go.
And I think that's pretty much it for now. We have not had an episode for a couple weeks. 2 weeks?
Yes.
Things have been real weird here because I think our move is going to be delayed, possibly till October.
Yep. It's potentially till October. Thanks to COVID.
Yeah. COVID really did screw up all our plans. That's okay. God has a plan. It'll all work out well in the end.
Yeah. God is sovereign. He knows best. And despite the world, who is completely untrustworthy, God still is. So we just kind of rest in that every day, and all the plans may fall through and be postponed, but hey, God's got it.
It'll work out okay in the end. So in case you guys have been living under a rock, which maybe some of you have, and I don't even blame you.
Which some do.
You know how those astronauts flew into space?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like those are the lucky ones.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of memes on that one.
Geniuses.
Anyway. But
yeah.
The world has been going crazy. Any offers of evidence?
Well, not only did COVID stop like the world, then people started protesting the lockdowns, and once they realized that
They protested the lockdowns?
Yes.
Okay.
The COVID lockdowns, people were protesting in many different states, Wisconsin being one of them.
Michigan.
Yeah, big ones in Michigan. It was happening everywhere. North Carolina, here a little bit, even in New York City.
Yeah.
And that was because the predictions about the disease were inaccurate, gravely inaccurate. And so people were trying to tell their governments that this lockdown doesn't match what we're seeing, right? Mm-hmm. And so you need to let us go back to work, give us our livelihoods back. This is unconstitutional, on and on they went. And then George Floyd died.
Well, first it was Ahmaud Arbery, and then it was George
True, that
Floyd.
started to... That was like the storm was brewing.
Yeah.
People already bothered and pent up because of the lockdown, because of everything going on with COVID. And then...
That was our cat flushing the toilet, y'all.
Yeah. Cat has no respect for the podcast. And so Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia died at the hands of 2 men who were attempting a citizen's arrest. And there's a whole lot of controversy still kind of going on. But at the same time, George Floyd died while being arrested at the hands of a police officer named Derek Chauvin. I'm sure a lot of you have heard, listened, and studied up on this, whether in the news, online.
It's basically impossible to avoid at this point.
And because maybe some were slow to react to the situation, protests started erupting. Probably first in Minneapolis, which is where it happened.
I think it was first in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And then because, the community, people want to support the community, protests started happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And they have continued now. It's been 3 weeks.
The protest quickly escalated into violence in many places. Not all places, but many places. Minneapolis, looting. Yeah. It got real ugly, and businesses were destroyed, property was destroyed, people were injured. It got real bad.
Looting, a Target was looted in Minnesota, and that became kind of
kind of the staple and start of the whole
right,
because they started closing Targets down then.
Yeah. Even here in New York, Target closed down how many? 15 stores.
Yeah, it was a handful.
And then they backed up some of them. They didn't close down a few.
Yeah.
The one closest to us was going to be one of them.
It's for people who have never lived in New York. It's kind of hard to explain, but like something as simple as closing down a Target is basically like cutting off your supply line, which I know sounds absolutely bizarre because you think New York, well, there's like everything here. But for us, like we don't have Walmart supercenters. We don't really have anything besides like a corner store or like just your corner bodega, kind of thing. So Walgreens maybe would be the next best thing if you don't have like a local Target.
And during this time, remember, everything is still shut down.
Right, yeah.
So Target was actually one of the only stores still fully open.
Right.
So other department stores, they're not open right now.
Right. So if you need like formula for a baby or diapers or even just like normal groceries, whatever, if your grocery store, your local grocery store in your block or your bodega, whatever, is all sold out, like you're just out of luck. And a lot of people don't have transportation because they use public transportation, which is also cut to a minimum right now. So going outside of the state or outside of like a walking radius is really hard for a lot of people. So this whole thing really has brought on a lot of chaos.
Right. That's our point in bringing all that up.
Right. So because we have been a little bit more quiet, not so much on our social media. I mean, you have been more vocal than I have just because we've been so busy. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that we have witnessed and talked about a lot is just how many Christians, in particular, like evangelical pastors and stuff, and even just people in the congregation, have either jumped into this Black Lives Matter movement, fully embracing it, warts and all, or how many Christians see the warts and rather than engaging with the issues of the Black Lives Movement issues, what they do is they will just say, if I stay out of it, if I don't post anything about it, if I don't embrace it, if I just kind of like shut my mouth about it, it'll go away and I won't have to deal with it. Right?
Sadly, yeah, that's what we've seen.
There are a lot of Christians who, maybe even at first, because we have known a couple people, who will say something very mildly controversial against the movement.
Right. Which is really just affirming any kind of biblical truth or biblical justice.
Right.
That's what we're talking about.
Right. Like,
simple biblical truths are highly controversial right now. Right.
And then people would instantly attack the man typically who posted the controversial statement, and then people would have to delete because they can't keep up with the negative comments, and it really is just like a cesspool of depravity. I feel like on social media right now. Anyway, this whole idea of like retreating and not engaging made me think of, do you remember the movie The Patriot? We were just talking about it the other day with Mel Gibson.
Amazing movie.
If you haven't watched this movie, you should. Actually, it's very timely for our world right now.
So true.
But in the movie, for those of you who have never watched it, Mel Gibson is a single father. I don't remember what happened to his wife, but he has like 7 kids or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's held during the Revolutionary War time. In
South Carolina.
Yep, in South Carolina. In the beginning of the movie, they realize that war is imminent. So there is a town hall meeting, and the men are arguing back and forth about whether or not they should join together and go to war to fight for the colonies, or if they can just hold off. And Mel Gibson's character has been in a war before, and so he knows the atrocities of war, and he doesn't want to go to war. Mm-hmm. He says, I don't want people like fighting in my backyard. If, this is going to be a war that's fought amongst you. This is not going to be like a war fought in another country where you don't have to witness all the terrible things that happen. Anyway, during the course of the movie, he ends up becoming involved because his son gets involved. Mm-hmm.
Well, they come to his farm.
Son dies.
Right. Yes.
Right. They come to his farm because he's taking care of both the the British soldiers that are injured and American soldiers that are injured. And he's taking care of both at his house because there was a battle literally in his fields the night before. And just being a kind man, he takes care of him. And then Colonel Tavington, who I can't remember in real life he's supposed to mimic, but he comes and says, "Oh, you're harboring the treasonous colony soldiers,
colonial soldiers,
and you should be held trial," and starts, what I mean. Colonel Tavington was an awful, terrible man, and the guy he mimics in real life too was the same. But like Lane said, his son ends up saying, he was part of it, and then he was going to get taken away and hung for treason or something, and then the other son jumps in. Boy. Yeah. So now he's involved.
Watch the movie if you haven't watched it.
Super good.
What happens though is because Mel Gibson's character is harboring fugitive soldiers, his house gets burned down, and whoever that guy's name is, I can't remember his name. The enemy, the crown, the red coat. What is his name?
Colonel Tavington.
Is that his name? Tavington? Yeah. I thought that was the other guy. Anyway, Tavington just says, let it be known, if you harbor the enemy, we will destroy you.
Right.
We will destroy you, basically. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just sitting here thinking about what happens when war comes to your doorstep. And we can pretend to be Mel Gibson in the situation and think, if we just ignore it, it'll go away. But it's not going to go away. And whether or not you want to admit it, we are in a war.
Right.
And so now you have to decide, even if you try and play neutral, right? You're harboring the redcoats and you're harboring the colonial soldiers, and you're trying to play nice and neutral here, right? We can kind of adopt some of the Black Lives Matter movement ideologies, go the whole just the evangelical route.
Right.
Widely. But even Matt Chandler, I think Al Mohler has been pretty soft on the issue.
Has he?
Yeah.
But it's let's just affirm what's good in this.
Russell Moore is a hot mess. Mm-hmm. Anyway, all of that. If you try and play neutral and take both sides and try and marry the two, what's going to end up happening is your house is going to get burned down.
Yep.
Because if you even try and play neutral, you are picking the wrong side.
And if you go to the Black Lives Matter Black Lives Matter website, and you look at their about section, just what they're about, their stance, what they're about, what their mission is, they don't hold back any punches at all. They tell you exactly what they're about, and everything they're about is anti-Christian.
Yeah.
They are all about transgender, LGBTQ propaganda.
Dismantling the family.
They want to dismantle the nuclear family. They want to dismantle the heteronormative privilege. All this kind of stuff that is just biblical. Right. That the family is central.
How you form a family is actually God's design.
For a strong society.
Right.
And everything. It's demonic is what it is. Everything that they're about.
Right.
And so, they care about justice. Got it. So do Christians. But an ungodly person is going to get at justice already from the wrong point if they don't start with the Bible.
Well, yeah. By what standard do you care about justice? What does justice look like for someone who doesn't understand God's law?
Right.
It's going to be a dumpster fire. That's going to be their definition of justice. And have you ever heard the analogy of if you are eating a salad and you keep finding bugs in your salad, how long do you keep eating the salad?
Yeah.
Do you say oh, this is a really good salad with a few bugs in it? Or do you just dump the salad and make a new salad?
Right.
I think it's time to stop picking the grasshopper legs out of your salad and just make a new salad.
Well, and on the flip side, the Virginia battle flag, commonly known as the Confederate flag, it's banned by the Marine Corps in all uses, period. And then everyone's talking about how terrible it is as a sign of oppression and hatred and all this kind of stuff. Not to say that the South during the Civil War in America was perfect, right? However, where are the people saying, well, you know what, I just embrace the good parts.
Right.
I just want to embrace the good parts of that, right? States' rights was good, and whatever.
Well, if you do that, you can look at people like Doug Wilson with the black and tan and all that sort of thing.
Right.
They're basically crucified.
Yeah.
You can't just pick the good parts out.
So the Christians that are saying, oh, well, we'll just go to Black Lives Matter and pick the good parts out. You're being a hypocrite.
Just pick the crickets out of the salad.
Right.
You can still eat it.
Yeah. So you can't do that.
Right.
So you do. If you don't just stick to biblical justice and stick to biblical principles and stand up for them, then you're going to be compromised.
Right. And if you think you can stay out of it, you already are compromised.
And the thing is that for them, and this is, Doug Wilson's thing in November, but there's no quarter for people who disagree with them. Like, it even says on their site, like, we do not,
right.
We don't want any of this stuff. And then in the next paragraph, though, they'll say, we're all inclusive. We accept everyone from all genders, all sexualities, all, faiths or no faith. And then they list off all this stuff. And I'm like, right here, you guys are such hypocrites.
Right.
It eats itself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But something that's been really sad that I've seen is, and you sort of mentioned it earlier, is seeing good friends that are conservative they're sharing things on Facebook or wherever that are good, strong stances. And then I saw someone share something and they said, I've deleted a bunch of recent posts because I didn't realize, who I was hurting or who I might hurt. And I really just want to spread love and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, man.
Right.
Like, him too, Right. And I was just like, golly, how many more, just chaff in the wind? You know what I mean? Like, come on. Like, we have enough of that already.
Yeah.
We have enough soft men, spineless men who are capitulating or have capitulated years ago on stuff, right? Let them have it. We need strong men. We need steel spines.
Well, and that's what got us here. We're
right.
weaselly men who didn't stand up.
Right. And, more and more I've been reading and thinking about the Puritans and the Covenanters who really stood up against the monarchs of England and were being killed. Women, young girls, two Margarets, women, I know. Women.
Francis,
women like lemon.
Like lemon. Women.
Oh, women.
I don't say it right. The two Margarets, right? In Scotland that were Covenanters, and the one guard says to the younger girls, 18 or 19, I can't remember the story, and they're like, you pray for the king right now. And she goes, I pray that the Lord would give the king repentance. But like, where's that, right? You will join our narrative. You will, you know what I mean? And you go, God, please give them your narrative. Or like something, you know what I mean? Just stand with Christ. Christ is king, and stand with him right now. And
there's too much backing down.
Yes. Definitely.
And you know me, I've had conversations about this.
Mm-hmm.
It irritates me.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Especially when it's someone who has like stood strong before, like some people, the things they post, I'm like, well, that's kind of what I'd expect.
Sometimes I wonder too if this isn't, obviously we know that our real enemy is Satan.
Right.
And he's a crafty little devil. But like, sometimes I think this could only happen in this Christian culture where we have first believed that church is not essential.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've been told that for the last few months. Church is not essential. Stay home. It's better for you to just love your neighbor than worship God.
Yeah.
That's what we've been told. That's what we believe now. It's been brainwashed into our cultural norms. And then because we believe that, we think we don't actually need the gospel to go forward to create any type of change in our society, right? The church, we don't need the church. We don't need the churchy things to make an impact in society. That's just like recreational fun times on Sunday when the government lets us.
Yeah.
If we believe that, then it's no wonder that we fall into these like weird social justice-y, we don't need the gospel, Beth Moore comments. We just need to love our neighbor. We just need to love people of color And then that is going to be enough, because that's what the church and the government has told us. The church isn't essential. Just love your neighbor.
Well, and another thing that the church has walked away from, and we've allowed the government to tell us, yeah, that's not essential. I'm here, is the family.
Yeah.
Right? And I know we wanted to talk about this specifically, but the church has walked away from a covenantal view of the family. And, predominantly we're not baby baptizers and children catechizers. And the more that we've walked away from those typical ways of building up and strengthening a family, well, what do you get? You get a weak society.
Well,
I still love you, Baptists, and everyone else who's not, pedo, but the principle is there where you slowly drift away from nurturing of your children into little kingdom saplings.
Well, and if you're not placing the mark of the covenant, not you, meaning you personally, but the church, if the church is not baptizing your babies, placing the mark of God's people upon that child, quite literally, the government's more than happy to put their mark on your kid. Right. You put them in a public school and a daycare. You put them in front of the TV.
Well, it's also called a social security number.
Yeah.
Which is a 1900s on thing.
Right.
This wasn't, they got off the Mayflower and here's your social security number.
Right.
That came later, but in the 1900s where that's the century that everything started to crumble and break apart.
It's not whether but which.
Exactly. You're going to be marked and catechized by someone.
Right.
It's not if you're going to be, it's who's going to do it.
Right. You can't escape it.
So.
And if you don't believe us, if you think we're being really hyper about this or something, ask your kid to sing a theme song of their favorite show. I promise you, any 2-year-old can hum along every bar. They know
something.
The theme song of Peppa Pig or, whatever. I don't have little kids anymore.
Sophia the First.
Yeah. Whatever it is.
My
Moana. Yeah.
Yeah, Moana. That's a big one.
Or our new one, Kokomo.
Coco, that's the adult
Boys.
catechism.
Yeah. But yeah, any kid can sing you the song of their people.
Exactly.
But the question is, who are their people? Who do they think they belong to?
Right. And our old pastor brought this up to me, and I think it's a psalm, but it just talks about how the people of God learn the language of Zion, which is where you worship God. That's church. You're a different people.
Yeah.
And our children in the whole Bible are always included in that. And so they too need to grow up talking different than the world and speaking the language of Zion, not the language of Baal, Molech, or
and
whoever.
I think a lot of parents, even Baptist parents who would disagree with infant baptism, would mostly agree with what we're saying.
Yeah.
But then say something but my kid doesn't understand, or, and they kind of try and make an excuse a little bit. Yes, I agree we need to catechize our kids, but they don't really understand when I'm giving them, their catechism questions or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I do it, but, and honestly, I think most of the excuses for not doing it are just a laziness or the fear of being a hypocrite on the parents' part. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do it. Or we were just talking with someone the other day about consistency in parenting and how when you do parent a kid, it's the same standard for the parent as it is for the child.
Right.
Mom and dad fall under the lordship of Christ, and so do you. God tells you to obey your parents, and I have to obey God too. Right. So we both have the same boss kind of a thing. Right. It's equal. Yep. And that is easy for a child to understand and respect. Because it means that mom and dad can't get away with all of their sin and lawless deeds. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, I'm spanked every time I hit my sister. Right. Whatever, Yep. It's consistent. It's stability. It makes sense. It's logical. And that's comforting to a child. And the problem with a lot of parents is that we don't want to be consistent. We don't want to have to put ourselves under that same amount of discipline and consistency that it would take for us to actually be disciplined and consistent with our own children.
And it's sad that we blame our kids.
Yeah.
For our own hypocrisy.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's super sad when you think about it. You're wow, I'm blaming my kid for my own lack of consistency in my walk before God.
Yeah.
That ought to sting a bit.
But it's true.
Yeah. So I know we wanted to talk about like what do we do though to wage war, right? Is war
Yeah.
So one of the things we've typically seen is people taking to social media which is good. I mean, there's a lot of conversations that are had on social media. Excuse me, sorry. But is that the only place? Where else should we be waging war? And maybe some places to wage war against all the craziness right now that we wouldn't expect.
Yeah, well, because the war is at your doorstep.
Right.
And you can choose to ignore it, but it's coming for you.
That's a hint.
It'll burn your house down. Actually, that makes me think of, for women, not women.
I don't know what you're saying. I don't know that word.
The proverb that says, a wise woman builds her home, but with folly she tears it down.
So if you've built a home, when war comes to it, a little harder to get in, right?
Well, and there's another proverb that talks about when her home, when it snows, she does not fear for her household. Mm-hmm. They're all clothed in scarlet. So there's a way you can build your home where in adversity comes for you, where and when adversity comes for you, you aren't actually fearful.
Yeah.
Because your household is clothed in scarlet. And there's a way where you can build your home, and rather than the enemy tearing it down, you're doing it for them.
True.
Like, you're jumping in and tearing apart your own home. And that honestly is a lot of what I see with this whole like social justice-y, feminist, Amy Bird crap that's just like floating around right now.
Yep.
Like, we are literally tearing apart our own homes.
Right.
And then like seeing...
We're doing the work for them.
Look, like we're, doing the Marie Kondo, we're so great at organizing our home, when in reality we're just like tearing plaster down and like...
You've already broke the windows.
Pretty much. We don't need the looters.
Yeah.
We are our own looters. Yeah,
I hate... Don't bother coming here. I've already burnt the house down.
Pretty much.
So a way to remedy this, right? So what do we do?
Well, it's different for each gender, each walk of life, right? Like someone who's single versus someone who's married, and just like your position, like your sphere of influence.
Right. Like, what do you do for a job?
Yeah.
That will come into play. But okay, for a woman, what would you say right now?
I mean,
you've talked about how basically any kind of feminist leanings are helping destroy, not help build.
Right.
And so, what do women?
Women, you did
yes. Woo! What do women do to help wage war right now? And I know we were talking earlier, and this may not be what people expect.
Well, number one, depending on your life situation, like unless you're a single mom or you have extreme situation on your hand, extremely abnormal situation, quit your job. Like, stop dividing your time for one. If you can, like, simplify your life, quit your job and be homeward focused, start there.
Don't throw out books you don't feel love for. Just quit your job.
Just quit your job. And I know that's, like, easy to say, and there are extenuating circumstances.
Yeah. Like you said,
your husband's paralyzed, you have to work, or you're a single mom, or whatever.
Right. We understand extenuating circumstances.
But I'm going to stop dying the death of 1,000... qualifications and just say quit your job and actually like believe the Bible. The Bible says to be the keeper of your home and the manager of your home. Just believe that God actually knows what he's talking about.
Right.
Because if you can't even be faithful in that one small thing, then you are living out disobedience to the entire world. Like, quite frankly.
Right. You're showing I don't actually believe this.
I don't believe that God's design actually is good and can like work out well for me in the end to his glory, right?
Yep. And we 100% understand that those words are hard words, but the Bible has a lot of hard words, and it's meant to produce soft people.
That doesn't mean a woman can't work outside of her home, right?
Right.
Because the Bible also talks about a faithful woman who is buying and selling and trading, is buying property, returning a profit or turning a profit on her purchases. And there's something glorious about that. It's not that a woman can't work outside of the home, right?
Right.
It's that she's not pursuing her career, and it is very much amendment to the fact that she is like running and managing her home.
Right. I mean, in Proverbs 31, there's a lot of other descriptors of this virtuous woman, like her children rise up and call her blessed. And so, again, to foster a home culture where that does happen.
Yeah.
If you're gone all the time, you're not there for them to bless you.
Well, and I think...
or they don't even know you.
One of the biggest things that we would say in a Christian home is that to make disciples, you have babies. That's the easiest way to make disciples. Mm-hmm. So if you're having children, raising them to be Christians, baptizing them, raising them to be Christians,
right?
Then, I mean, God willing, we have 3 little disciples who will have more children, and they'll have more children, and so on and so forth. And that is the most practical, easy, simple way that the kingdom of God grows.
Right.
Do that. It's really hard for you to grow faithful children if you have the government raising them.
Exactly.
Because that goes back to the government putting their mark on their covenantal mark on your child.
Well, and they have to train them in some worldview. Right. You can't not do that. Where the way they learn history is going to be a certain way.
Right. Well,
it's not going to be a Christian
even now,
way.
We are seeing the liberal agenda trying to taint and change even American history within the last 100 years. We're not even talking about world history, just the very brief window of history that like my grandparents have lived in,
Well, when you got what's Cuomo's, the dude that's on the news though, his brother Chris Cuomo on CNN on his show saying, whatever said that protests need to be peaceful. Yeah. And like literally in the First Amendment just says, and the right to peaceably protest. It's just right there. But it's because those founding principles, which are biblical and they're principles that we don't teach anymore. They're not required learning. They're not emphasized. And so I think right now a lot of what we're seeing is the product of disregarding our history and stripping God out of all of it, stripping biblical principles out of all of it.
Well, this is where you can't divorce God from certain subjects either, right? Because I have heard,
any really, right?
Any. But I'm just saying, like, even as far as education goes, because I've heard and seen on a lot of like reformed homeschooling pages where they'll say things like, I know this isn't really a Christian curriculum, but I'm going to use a Christian curriculum for Bible or science or like whatever. They can piece it together. And it's like, science doesn't make sense unless you have a logical God. Mm-hmm. Like if you have an evolutionary worldview, everything is random.
Yep.
How can you ever test or prove anything? Because what's consistent and true one day could just be totally the opposite the next. Like none of it makes any sense. And you can't divorce certain subjects and topics in education from the creator. It's impossible. So then if you believe that and you think, well, that's absolutely true, then why in the world would you send your child who is going to be educated into a system where they're getting a subpar education so that you can turn around and work in a society that is godless as well, because it like puts a feather in your hat because you're, contributing to the society.
Right.
Like, it's just a weird thing in my mind. Get the heck out of the office, get your butt in the kitchen, learn how to cook, learn how to educate your children, learn how to love your husband, and learn how to do it joyfully.
And those are all commands in the Bible.
Yeah.
Erica's not making up this stuff. And
you want to talk about being countercultural?
Right. Say
any of those things to anyone, even in Christian circles, and you will piss them all off.
That's true. And so another thing in the home before I go outside the home is fathers need to be catechizing and doing family worship with their family, with their kids. Those kids need to understand the world and everything in it through a biblical lens and through biblical eyes. They need eyes that will see everything as God is creator, as Jesus is king, right? As the Holy Spirit is working the purposes of the kingdom through everything, even tragedy, even protest, and what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. God's kingdom and redemptive purposes are still being worked out. That is still happening.
Right.
Like we said in Pilgrim's Progress.
Pilgrim's Promise.
Yeah, that's right. Pilgrim's Promise. We played on that title. But for them, I mean, the world was incredibly dark and terrible, and they had to flee to Holland where...
I mean, their life was literally jeopardized.
You imagine having to flee your own country to go to another country, and
we're trying to right now. It's not working out so well for us.
But they speak the same language as us.
That's true.
In Holland, half the people couldn't get jobs because they couldn't get well-paying jobs because they didn't know the language.
Right.
And then so anyway, all that to say is, look what God did out of that, right?
Right.
And so we know God is still working in all these things, but fathers need to put that responsibility on their shoulders. These kids are mine. This wife is mine to water with the word and to raise up to love and know the Lord. That's your responsibility. So find a good church to put them all in. And then during the week, you are leading Bible study and reading through good books about church history or biographies of people that God has used throughout history, whatever it is, something to cultivate and build up. Catechisms. Mm-hmm. There are several that are good. And
so what you're saying is it's a mother's job, a wife's job, even if you don't have children, mm-hmm. a wife's job to foster a happy home, mm-hmm. a warm home, a place of encouragement and safety. And that's where discipleship happens. Mm-hmm. Dad comes home from work into this wonderful, pleasant home, hopefully, mm-hmm. where kids are eager to learn because mom is constantly teaching them throughout the day. Yep. And then when dad comes home, their mind is ripe for ideas. And then dad says, hey, guess what I encountered in the world today? Let me tell you about this adversity or this protest or this mm-hmm. whatever. Let's think through it. Right. Let's process through it. Let's find out what church fathers have talked about. And let's find out what God's word has to say. And let's mm-hmm. do all the hard work and is like teaching critical thinking and is preparing them for life outside of that nest.
Yep, exactly. So when they encounter the world, they go, I know what I do here. I know what's world we're supposed to do here.
And this is where homeschoolers have traditionally done a terrible job because there are tons and tons and tons of moms who are great at like nurturing and sheltering their kids, but there aren't nearly enough dads being like, yeah, but there actually is a world out there that I need to prepare you for. Mm-hmm. And so they get out there and the allure of the world is like so tempting to them. Yeah, it's tempting or it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. True. So outside the home for the man, not only social media, like we said, is a good place to share truth and to spread good things, share good things like Reformed Rebel Network content, but also at the workplace, men. I think this is a whole lot harder than hitting the share button on Facebook. Is sharing the gospel, standing up for truth, and being a light at work, especially right now. The lines of division are becoming bold. Yeah. They're huge chasms now, right? Because it's just gonna get wider and wider. So many more topics, right?
Because the cornfields are on fire.
Exactly. But remember a few years ago, there was I think it was in Canada actually, but there some company had like Pride Day and everyone needed to put a rainbow flag on their desk mm-hmm. at work. And I think it was a Christian lady though. But anyway, a Christian just said, no, I'm not going to put the flag. Literally that small of a thing. Just don't put the flag. And
I would have just like made a little rainbow that said, I believe in God's promises.
Right. Stuck it on my desk. I love the Noahic covenant or something.
That'd be a no for me there, hey?
Yeah. And so they did, and they got sent right to human resources. I think that person lost their job. It was this big deal over a little rainbow flag. But
she should have been in her kitchen.
Well, true.
Just kidding.
But that kind of stuff just needs to happen. Men need to fight to figure out a way to bring light into their workplace, into that sphere. Jesus is Lord of it, and we've been commanded to, we've been commanded to disciple that, right? Discipling the nations doesn't just mean Christians in every nation in the world. It means also to disciple those nations. So the businesses, the politics, the education,
right,
all of those different entities in a nation need to be Christianized.
Right. So it's teaching the politician how to be a Christian politician. It's teaching
exactly.
the farmer how to be a Christian farmer. It's teaching the science teacher how to teach science Christianly and where to do that.
Right. And listen, Daniel and his friends, this is Daniel chapter 1, I believe, said, no, we are not going to eat from the king's table. Like, you're not our daddy. You don't rule us. You don't own us. God owns us. God rules us. And so we're not going to,
Yeah, our diet might seem meager, and you might think like, well, if I were to just take the handouts from the king, we could be stronger.
Right.
But we'll be stronger if we take on all these government subsidized whatever.
Right.
And it's like, but now you are beholden to the government. And A.D. Robles was talking about this. He does it a lot, actually. He talks about being more self-sufficient.
Right.
Christians need to learn, like, what it means to be self-sufficient, meaning you don't need the government to live. If the government were to all of a sudden take away everything they do for you, it wouldn't mean anything to you because they don't do anything for you anyway.
Exactly. I just saw today Doug Wilson tweeted, and I haven't read what happened in this, but what he said applies here. He just said something about a Supreme Court ruling, and he said, remember, New St. Andrews College, which is the college he started in Idaho, he said, New St. Andrews College doesn't take any federal money. And he said all the Christian colleges that do are definitely in for it.
Yep.
And just that terminology, I don't even know what he's talking about. I'm like, oh, dang, I wonder what they passed. I wonder what they passed that.
It was, well, it's another conversation.
Yeah, but that's what you're talking about, is not having to be dependent on federal loans and, filling your classes with students at your college because they can get federal loans or because they can get whatever from the government.
And so I can hear all the Christians now saying, well, the problem is that there are a lot of single moms and there are a lot of poor people and there are a lot of whatever. And so what are we supposed to do?
Go ask
people
your church.
have to eat. So imagine if in every way the government has their handouts, right? They help the farmer, they help the single mom on welfare, they help with food stamps, they help with whatever.
Business owners.
Sure.
Yeah.
Business loans even, right?
Yep.
I mean, you name it, all the things the government does. What if the church did? Think about the type of power the church would have. So now you have a deadbeat dad who's abusing his wife, who's not feeding his kids, whatever. He's got a drug problem, an alcohol problem, but he's really dependent on the church. So now when the wife is saying, I'm going to go talk to our pastor, he's actually scared.
Right.
There actually is some type of respect and reverence and, like, I don't want to say threat, but like, holy cow, I actually do need to, like, live up to this standard that God has for me, rather than I'm going to call the police. And the police don't do anything.
Right.
Like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, doing it God's way actually is more victim focused. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. And
beneficial.
Definitely. Yeah, 100%. Because the way the government hands stuff out never encourages a man or the head of a household or whatever to just become a productive person.
Right.
There's no incentive to stop taking the handout.
Well, and in a lot of cases, it actually cuts the legs out from underneath a man. Like if he has any kind of, abuse charge, which is a very vague term, like he could have cussed at his wife and get an abuse charge in some cases. But like in many of those kinds of cases, now he can't even be around his kids.
Yeah.
So now you're like, you're just like stuck between a rock and a hard place of, do I call the cops on my husband because he's got a temper problem and he just punched a hole in the wall? If I do, then he might not be able to, like, actually be around the kids anymore. So it's it's a weird thing. The whole system is broken. And
but the main point, what we're saying though, is that the church should be the lead in a lot of this though. So that we shouldn't have to be dependent upon.
But I was bringing up some of those reforms and some of those ideas to say it's not that we are saying that culture doesn't need to be reformed, police don't need to be reformed, society doesn't need to be reformed, the church doesn't need to be reformed. We're called Awakening Reformation, for crying out loud.
Right.
We believe it needs to be reformed.
Right.
But not in the same way that the Black Lives Matter movement is like pushing for.
Not at all.
Not that aggressive.
No. They're not. Their goal is not a biblical society. No. So a Christian cannot stand up with them and say, I'm with you. That is a biblically inconsistent thing to do.
I mean, it literally is like, one of the colonials looking at the redcoat being like, we want the same things. I'll fight with you. Right. But you don't really want the same things. And a lot of them quickly realized that.
Exactly.
As the redcoats were, locking people in churches and burning them down.
Yeah. Putting your head in the sand is not going to work.
It's not working. Look around you.
You can't just ignore it. It's going to come at you from some angle, whether it's your boss saying, put this rainbow flag out, or whatever. You sharing a Bible verse and someone saying like, oh, you believe the Bible? Well, the Bible talks about slavery. So what? Mm-hmm. And like at some level, you're going to have to stand up.
Right.
And you're going to have to know your Bible.
Your kids are learning about the LGBTQ agenda in school if they go to a public school. I promise you.
And they should be learning it from you, not there.
They should learn a lot worse too.
Yeah, and a lot worse.
True.
But I'm just saying, like, they are being catechized. The war is being waged.
Right.
It's creeping into your home. Mm-hmm. And as a woman, like your home is where your battlefild is. Once something passes past that like threshold of your door, defense. Like you have the right to, as JL did, put a tent peg in the temple of your enemy, right? Because it's come to you. You weren't out in the fields, looking for the enemy. Yeah, you weren't looking for a fight. You weren't looking to cut off anyone's head. Mm-hmm. That's where your husband should be.
So, just on that point right there, babe, for a woman on social media and a mom, what would be the more JL like move on social media?
I mean, it's hard because there's a lot of topics to be.
Two examples.
Discussed.
One is political commentary, and again, I'm not even saying either one's bad or mm-hmm. whatever, but political commentary, sharing a news article and giving some political commentary, and then the next post or a similar post is about something going on in the home, some praise for one of their kids, mm-hmm. whether it's a verse they memorized or something like that. What do you say between those two?
I mean, if given the choice, should a woman be posting something political or posting about like a great
raising
victory,
godly saplings?
Yeah, a victory she won in her own home. I'd much rather her post about a victory she won in her own home, but at the same time, I don't think a woman can't post about something political. And like a woman is still called to love God with all her mind. So mm-hmm. we have to. This is what's hard. A woman ought to be able to speak the hope of the gospel in on any topic, whether it's politics, religion, education, whatever. Everything. Like be educated, be every bit as educated as a man. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right.
But realize how you apply that is going to look a whole lot differently than a man. And it should.
Right.
Because if you are the one that's constantly battling with men about politics on your Facebook page and your husband is looking on, I've got some concerns there.
Right. Well, and it kind of goes back to what Paul said about the body of Christ too, right? Not all can be a mouth, not all can be eyes, not all can be ears. So having differences and distinctions, which again is completely opposite of the Black Lives Matter and our social...
They're egalitarian.
Right. the squashing of any distinctions, which again, they literally say on their website, we want to do away with all distinctions and inequalities.
So let me say it like this. A woman's social media account ought to look more feminine than a man's.
Yep.
And that's not to say that like her...
And a man's should just not look feminine.
Absolutely.
Period.
I mean, if men are always posting about like the doily they crocheted and the sourdough they made and the cute sundress, they
block and ban.
Like, don't worry about what I post.
Block and ban it now. If I post it, I'm praising the incredible craftsmanship of my wife.
Yeah, but that's fine because that's a biblical concept too, right?
Praise her in the gates.
That's right. But how we do social media as women ought to be different than how a man does social media. Right. Does that make sense? And I'm not going to like sit here and police women's social media accounts. I have no desire to do that.
But if you read the Bible about men and women, you'll see that there are different just personality characteristics of each. Well, right? Men are never called to have a gentle and quiet spirit.
Right.
But women are.
Right.
Joshua was told by God over and over and over, and be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous. Right. Women, you don't see being reminded all the time, be strong and courageous. Are they supposed to be? Yeah. But it's because men are given a job where things get a little scary, and then they need to be reminded that the Lord's with them and that they need to be strong and courageous. And so that's probably why Joshua was reminded a lot. There's really big people who had sophisticated weapons and all that in Canaan. So I get it, right? I'm in the army. I get it. And so you just have to see these different roles that men and women play. And like you said, that it should look different. And that's okay. That's a good thing. That means you're covering all the bases, right?
And I can hear and I feel the struggle even myself, but I can hear women saying, but it doesn't bother me when people attack me on social media. It doesn't bother me when I have men calling me names or attacking me for my beliefs. And that's not to say you can't post about your beliefs. I'm not at all saying that.
Not at all.
But I have noticed that I can post something and my captions invite rage. And I can post the same thing where my caption invites a totally different response from people, right? And this is where like wisdom comes into play and all this kind of stuff. But for the women who say it doesn't bother me when they're attacking me, that's my problem. It's kind of like when Christians say like I can watch Game of Thrones and it doesn't bother me. But it should bother you.
I remember being in sin, way back, and it didn't bother me.
Right, that's the problem. So if it doesn't bother you, if you can harden yourself to that type of response, I'm not saying women should be like babies and like fussing all the time over like someone calling them a mean name, but I'm saying there is some type of softness that you want to have as a woman. You don't want to become so hard and calloused and abrasive and like masculine that's just your demeanor and that's what you're putting off to the world. I can be every bit as strong and gruff and brute as a man. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my 2
cents. I hope it does to all of y'all.
That's my 2 cents. And that does not mean you can't have the JL steely spine when the fight comes to you.
Right.
But you shouldn't be out looking for a fight.
Right. You can still be resolved on what the mission in the end game is. Right. Enemy needs to die. You just have a different place where you fight that war. Right.
And God decides when and how the fight is brought to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And men should just always be ready to fight.
Oh yeah. Every day.
That's right.
Heck yeah, brother.
And so man, I just can't encourage men enough to just have a strong spine. And if you're having a difficult time doing that right now, like I said, read up on the Covenanters. Like, you just read a few biographies of them. I found a YouTube channel called Scotland's Forgotten History. And it's little, 10-minute videos about certain men throughout the Covenanter time in the 1600s. And who just were, they were so strong and courageous standing up for their convictions. No, for Christ's crown and covenant. Like, king, queen, it doesn't matter. Christ is king and I will obey him before you. Gosh. And right now the crown, yes, is the government. Well, that's what we've seen. The government and COVID, that's been the crown. And then right now the crown is the mob. Right?
Yeah.
in the protest. And both of those are causing so many Christians to just buckle.
Yep.
And as soon as they see them at their doorstep, their knees are knocking.
Mm-hmm.
And we need none of it.
Sometimes I relate to the Israelites marching around Jericho.
Yeah.
Like day 4 Israelites.
Yeah.
We were like, why are we doing this again, God? Like, this seems like a really foolish idea. I trust you.
Right.
This does not seem like the most effective way of doing this. Surely there's a better way.
Totally. Yeah.
That's where we are. Like, we're in the middle of it. Like,
Uh-huh.
we're just going to keep going, and there will be success in the end. Like, the walls will come down.
Mm-hmm.
Christ has already won the battle.
Right.
Like, the promised land is already our inheritance. You
exactly.
know?
We walk by faith, not by sight.
And we're just on day 4 of marching. That's all.
Yep. A few more days. You got this.
But you have to be willing to do the marching.
Yeah. Can't stop. Can't stop
at this
marching.
point, we're on like day, 100 and something?
Seriously.
We've been secret for a while.
That's very, very true.
You know, you take the words from the great Beastie Boys.
And
we got the right to fight. It's not really a party, though.
Hey, we're partying. Jesus is king and still in charge, and people can pretend, but Psalm 2 says, like, the nations plot and rage against God, and
yeah,
it's all in vain. God's just laughing at them. That's funny.
It's like a toddler pitching a fit.
Yeah.
That's like literally what God sees when he looks down at the riots, and he's like, oh, it's kind of cute, but you are wicked,
Yeah. So.
It's not cute in the, like, cuddly kind of cute. It's cute in the, like, you're small.
It's pity.
You're
How
small,
pathetic.
and I could whip your butt in, like, 2 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Well put, babe. Well put.
Thanks.
All right. Are we good?
I guess. I hope that made sense.
Yeah. I hope that was helpful, and hopefully it was encouraging. If you like this episode, this content, please share and like it. And
we're going to try and be more consistent.
Yep. Comment on it. Let us know your thoughts. All right. We really appreciate the engagement and hope to talk with some of you guys.
I'll make sure they keep on track.
And he'll keep us on track. Our regulator. All right, everybody. Thank you. Exactly. We pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened by the power of the Spirit. And until next time, get woke.